recognised factor influencing sporting results, the state of origin, the biggest sporting event. People were openly stating this is Queensland's worst team. Somehow Queensland won. Firstly, teams in front of home crowds tend to take more risks. Do you cheer yourself on, or are you booing your every move? Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine. Thanks for joining me today. I offer mental health online services including email, phone, instant chat and online face-to-face. The link is in the bio for you to make an anonymous instant booking. So I thought today it might be fun to talk a little bit about sports psychology, specifically the phenomenon known as the homeground advantage, which is a recognized factor influencing sporting results where teams playing will tend to win more than 50% of games played at home. USA National Basketball, English Premier League Soccer, two very different games and two very different cultures. But if playing on home ground, will win about 63% of the time for both. Now, I thought it would be really interesting to apply this home ground phenomenon to the 2020 State of Origin series. I just realized I'm wearing blue is coincidental. So anyway, you'll understand later. Using this rugby league game as an example, I'll analyze the effects of playing on home ground and how that can contribute to a team's success and show you what the psychological scientific research says. Before I get started, just a side interesting fact, this particular game I will analyze was held at Suncorp Stadium and was apparently the world's largest sporting event since COVID-19. We had almost entirely eradicated the virus from our population, so we were given the green light to hold this event, and with over 100,000 attendees, it was the biggest sporting event since COVID. So it was quite a historic game in that sense, and just a step towards normality again. So just to give everyone a little bit of context on the State of Origin, it is arguably the biggest sporting event for Australia. Basically, two rivalry states, Queensland, which are the Maroons, and New South Wales, which are the Blues, battle it out in a best of 3 rugby league series. I know a lot of people outside of Australia cannot understand how we can play this rough and violent game, but surprisingly, there's not a lot of injuries, despite the fact that they don't have the padding that you might see on the American equivalent. I say there's not a lot of injuries, but in this game alone, 2 of the players were knocked unconscious, so it is a dangerous sport, let's be honest. Queensland was dubbed the worst ever Queensland team to ever play, taking into account the players' stats, ages, and a number of other factors. They were not expected to win the series. Even Queenslanders on the day of the series quietly believed that New South Wales would probably win. The New South Wales team was just more superior statistically, plus they were fresh off a series win for 2019 as well, so they had that in their sails. Now, in terms of wins and losses, in relation to playing on and off home ground, let's take a look at their statistics. Game 1 was played on neutral ground, so it was played in neither Queensland nor New South Wales territory, and Queensland just won with a score of 14-18 in their favour. Then Game 2 was played on New South Wales turf, so in Sydney, and New South Wales destroyed Queensland with a score of 34-10. Home ground advantage maybe? Also, on a side note, this is when State of Origin gets really exciting, when Game 3 is the decider, so when it's 1-all. Game 3 this year was held in Queensland, as mentioned, at the Suncorp Stadium, and Queensland won 20-14. Now keep in mind that for the first time in many, many years, people were openly stating this is Queensland's worst team based on player profiles and Then when you compared each player with their New South Wales equivalent, the New South player was stronger in nearly all cases, yet somehow Queensland won. Now, psychology would say this is how the home ground phenomenon may have affected their ability to win what some may have considered to be an unwinnable match. Firstly, teams in front of home crowds tend to take more risks. They have positive reinforcement through fan support, which can shape and reward assertive behaviours, and accordingly, they embrace a more proactive play style, the noise of affirmation. Accordingly, without home crowd, there is less attacking gameplay, fewer goals and fewer runs or attempts at goals. Then there are the debilitating effects of travel for the team who has to travel to the opponent's home ground. And this can play a big part too. Traveling affects us physically. They encounter disruption to normal routines, they're away from their family and their everyday comforts. On the field, you don't have the fan support, plus there's unfamiliarity with the venue and its idiosyncrasies as well. For example, maybe like one patch of the field is that little bit slipperier than anywhere else. So you can adjust for it if you know about it, but if you don't, then you're more than likely to slip and fall. So that's just the player psychology, what is working for the team playing on home ground and what is working against the team who is playing on unfamiliar territory with a usually unwelcoming, booing crowd. The effects of the crowd has on psychology is not limited to the players either. Sports data shows us that players on home ground get fewer penalties and the team without home crowds get more. How is that possible? Well, the research suggests there is an unconscious impact of crowd support even on the referee's decisions. See, they're only human and they do not want to bear the brunt of the crowd of all these people booing and hissing at them. Then when they penalise the team, that outsider team, they get positive reinforcement from the crowd through like their roar of appraisal and like an affirmation that what they did was the right thing in their account. So the crowd is supporting their home team. So when the opposing team is given a penalty, they cheer, which serves as positive affirmations to the referee whenever they penalise that outsider team. Now, applying this psychological theory to the decider game, Game 3 of State of Origin 2020, was there evidence of home team Queensland taking more risks or playing more assertively? Particularly in comparison to Game 2, Queensland began to dominate in the first half, but by the second half, their dominance was really particularly evident. They had New South Wales camped on their try line for about 25 minutes. So how about New South Wales? How did they go? Was there evidence of less attacking gameplay and fewer goals or attempts at goals? It wasn't until the last 15 minutes of the game that New South Wales finally got their gusto back. In a 6-minute burst, they matched Queensland's points haul for the half. They did that in 6 minutes, but it just wasn't enough. Now, how about penalties? Yep, New South Wales or the outsider team copped it. Accidental offside and knock-on penalties went to New South Wales in instances where it could have swung either way. Then there was a really interesting moment where a New South Wales player had a try intercepted, but it was achieved through a professional foul. Now, in these instances, the player can be awarded a penalty try because they would have tried. This will forever be controversial. Would Josh Adokar have made that try? I believe he would have, and it would have meant the score would have been equal, but the penalty try was not awarded. Sure, I believe Adokar would have made that try, but should a penalty try be awarded that far out from the try line? I don't know, I'll leave that recommendation to the football professionals, I think. I'll stick to psychology. From my point of view, the momentum of the game was in Queensland's favour. There were over 100,000 people in the crowd. That's a lot of people to face up against as the referee. It is possible that home ground advantage may have influenced the referee's decision here in regards to that penalty try. As for New South Wales losing and Queensland winning, there are always other contributing factors. A huge factor would have been early on in the game, New South Wales lost their best looking player. Kidding, they lost their best player. He's also their best looking. But he is legitimately the best player in rugby league right now, and their captain. So he sustained a concussion early on, and his loss would have been palpable to the team. I guess we'll never know if they would have won the series if he was playing, despite a home ground advantage for Queensland. So the effect of home ground is an interesting concept, but like anything really, if you have supportive company cheering you on in life, you'll probably go further. People from abusive families often develop problems later on in life, including poor decision making and low self-esteem. Take this down a notch further. What's your inner voice like? Do you cheer yourself on, or are you booing your every move like an unwelcoming crowd would? Just think about it. You can change that voice. You can see just how much words, when chanted from thousands of strangers, can impact behavior. So consider how your direct words to yourself, non-stop, day in, day out, might impact your behavior as well. If you want to work through this with me, I offer online mental health support services. Please click the link in the bio for an instant booking. Thanks for tuning in today.